Welcome back to the LEC, where I wanted to break down some of Misfits' early objective setups, even in their loss, because I think it was very important to highlight some of the things which they've improved on in a very important game where actually they needed the early game to go well for them. So this is actually going to be around about 5 minutes 30. We're going to look at specifically how Mercer does with his rotations across the map. Before we start playing the clip, just wanted to note a couple of things. First up, we have course, the wave being pushed in bot lane. Obviously, with Jinx pre-level 6, you've got AoE rockets, definitely helps you do that. And in mid lane, you've got the Syndra doing a very similar thing with those Dark Spheres. What this means, you have bot lane, you've got mid lane holding the enemy lanes in position. They're not really able to go towards a lot of where they want to in terms of responding to plays on the map. So with that said, let's start playing this clip and watch what Mercer does with this. So, see that Neon, see that Mercer, they take control of the wave. Kazi and Labrov don't really have the same ability to respond to anything. With this, it's a free dragon. We see that resets come in after this point because Misfits are kind of done with the bottom half of this map at this point. You want to get your items, you've already dealt with the objectives. So with this, we're going to go, yeah, you know what, let's pause it again because of course it becomes in very important here. So when we look into the mini-map here, we can see that Jinx has already reset, so that means Jinx is safe at this point. That's all well and good. You know that VTO is also taking control of that mid lane, which means that the top side of the map is still going to be pretty safe, and your jungler and support there. Everyone's safe, everyone's covered, everyone's accounted for. Gonna keep playing the clip and see what Misfits do with this moment of power when they have everyone grouped up. And they move from top side, they get some vision, they clear it out, they roll down the map with everyone still being safe. Mercer goes towards bot side to sort out the bot wave, and then we can see again that they're using their wave clear to continually allow the Thresh that room to move to these waves, which are very, very important. Establish vision, establish safety for the members that want to go up as well. Even with the TF, like trying to make plays on the map, we can see that Misfits are using the Thresh to really move across the map and make sure that they're safe and they have information to use in the early game. I think that Misfits use this very well, and on the whole, they did pull this off very well. Of course, they needed to do this. We saw what happened later into the game, but still, it's great to see this team still have a development in an area of the game which they had struggled in before. So with that, obviously Vitality managed to bring it back. So Laure is joined by Labrov to talk about how they started winning in the mid-game.
Thank you so much, Labrov, and thank you so much for joining me. Also, congrats on taking down Misfits. They looked unbeatable so far with the winning streak they had. So what can you tell me about your understanding of the team, especially in the mid-game, because this is usually when Misfits comes alive?
Hello, Laure.
Hi.
First of all, going versus Misfits, we weren't really scared because I think as Vitality we matched good into them. I think last time we played, we also had like a rough early game, but we still managed to win the game, even from not the best position. So yeah, I was pretty confident going into today.
I think it's interesting. Mentioning it to Karzi yesterday, he told me you also want to improve in the early game. So I'm just wondering what goes wrong in these moments with Vitality, because usually you draft strong lanes, but it doesn't work out well always. So what do you think you're failing so much in the early games?
Yeah, our early games are definitely not very consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's due to the fact that we are not always playing very well, like individually. Everyone from us. Everyone has like shaky games. And I feel like once we fix this and get used more to the stage, we'll be really good for playoffs.
Yeah, because you look so strong in the mid-game and especially in team fights and the way you group together. I have a question about Misfits because looking at Mercer especially, he's not used to roaming so much. Is it something that surprised you today?
The level 3 dive on mid definitely surprised us. And I think Mercer played really well the early game. So yeah, props to him.
He did. But also nice job on cancelling the lanterns all the times with the wards. Talking about you, Labrov, and Tahm Kench especially, I think it's a champion we don't see too often, even though AD carries are at the center of attention right now. What's your take on the champion and how strong it is in drafts?
I think Tahm Kench is pretty strong right now.
Yeah.
Considering that Aphelios and Jinx are meta, which Tahm Kench is really good with them, even in lane and later on in fights, that he can just save them and they can do so much damage. And I think more and more people will start playing Tahm Kench now. They still didn't get used to him because he got buffed like 2 patches ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see him being meta right now.
All right, yeah, a champion to look at, especially as the playoffs are coming. Last question for you, Labrov. You are now reunited with Carzzy. I know you guys used to play together back in the EU Masters. You go way back together. How is it being reunited with him and playing again together in Vitality this year?
I love playing with Carzzy. I think both of us have similar mindset of how to play the game, and I think we have good synergy as well. So yeah, I'm definitely playing more on stage with him and showing even better results.
It's great seeing you together again, Labrov. Thank you so much for the interview.
Thank you.
Congrats on the week also, 2-0. And back to you guys at the desk for more on this game.
Thank you very much, Laure. Lovely to hear from Labrov. And he's also giving some props to Mersa, as Nymaera showed us, for the early game move specifically. But sadly for Misfits and very positively for Vitality, that's not where the game ended. Broxah, can you tell us how Vitality was able to overcome that early game deficit thanks to their composition?
I'm actually really impressed with the way Vitality has been drafting both yesterday and today. They're drafting comps that are pretty simple, relatively easy to execute. They have a lot of tools to make plays in the early game, but they also have a lot of ways to defend their AD carry, to set up team fights, and overall, the early game played out almost as you would expect it to, with Misfits looking for the plays with the lead, the first to Syndra, getting a slight lead, but they need to be able to snowball that lead really effectively. Now, unfortunately with them, Vitality just played so solid, they didn't give them any chances. Eventually, Selfmade on the Zanzarah went completely nuts and just started taking over the game with assistance from his team, of course.
And what I do feel like has happened again 2 games this week is Vitality have had kind of an isolated top lane matchup. Yes, the TF did impact that, and we know that Misfits were trying to shield that with the early Thresh rotations and all of that. But the fact that Alphari is able to get powerful individual champions and play them out to strong individual leads cannot be allowed to happen against Vitality. They're too good with it.
And they have showed now 2 games in a row that despite being put in a deficit or having a rough early game, they do have the shot calling and the compositions in the mid game to bring it back. We talked about the jungle matchup so much. We saw the Zanzarah coming out from the side of Selfmade. Immediately, you can go for a Lee Sin, but it's going to make your life pretty difficult, Broxah, and I think we saw that in the end.
No, definitely. I think with the steps Misfits took in the early game, they were able to snowball. They could have found their success, but Vitality was able to shut them down pretty easily. I also think with the draft, Misfits put themselves in a kind of tricky position, banning the Hecarim, banning the Zanzarah. I actually thought they were going to first pick Zanzarah because whether you get Aphelios or Jinx, arguably not going to make the biggest difference. But at that point, with 2 junglers being banned, taking the priority jungler can be pretty huge.
Selfmade took that. He is also our key player of the game for that one. Instrumental, Nymaera, in the mid game, making sure that the team was at the right spot at the right time around those objectives.
And constantly pressuring the right people too. We saw that the Syndra got the early leads, and Syndra into Jinzao was not the best matchup because you ult him and then he just kind of wards it away with that ultimate. Tahm Kench doing a very similar job, but the fact that you have those matchups and then you're able to put the extra pressure on just by constantly being in their face, very important.
If yesterday for Vitality it was a little bit of crawling over the finish line, I think this was a huge win for them. If we take a look at the standings, they also take a tremendous step in that regard. Not good news for Mad Lions and SK Gaming because Vitality is firmly now 3 wins ahead of them, which is huge at this point in the season. Next up though is SK Gaming, looking to match Vitality's win and stay alive in the race for playoffs against Astralis. Trouble and Quickshot, over to you.
Thank you very much, Sjokz. And I'm going to ask Trouble, do you believe? You don't know where I'm going with this.
In life after love?
Believe? So much better than I was going. SK Gaming will advance to playoffs in only 8.4% of remaining scenarios. I'm going to wait to find out just how many scenarios there are. It's several million at this point. And if they manage to pick up a win here against Astralis, that does go up to 12%. But for SK Gaming, who are just outside of that race, teams like Mad Lions around them are competition. Teams like XL. This is a very, very important game for SK.
It is, absolutely. Especially when you're like right below that line. And now that the difference has been made even bigger, you're like 2 games away.
Yep.
You know you have to win every single one. And then I don't even think it's up to your hands.
Well, let's see if they can do what they're about to take on Astralis. There's a few extra seconds. Now!
It's okay, I got you.
almost every time I try to move into these hype moments, I always get very high energy. And I thought I'll mix it up. You set up the stakes so importantly as I didn't want to go against like the gravitas you imbued. And the production just like, what the hell was that, Trev? You dropped the ball. Anyways, SK Gaming on the blue side, facing off against Astralis today. Now, yesterday, SK got run around the map by Vitality. And I think I definitely, upon reflection, think that SK were a bit desperate in some of their engages. Or like, they didn't plan far enough ahead, weren't on the same page. Like you had Hecarim that was 1.5 miles ahead.
I think they weren't on the same page. I felt like a lot of times Gilius would overreach, and it's very easy to do, like especially on a champion that is so easy for you to distance yourself from your team so quickly. Yeah. That wasn't necessarily my problem. I think my problem mostly with that draft was that they didn't have another champion to just dive the backline together with Hecarim to finish and capitalize on these kills.
Can I play to the fans really quick? That Aatrox not working out, bruv. Twice, a couple times. It's not something that I've seen hugely successfully.
Okay, first pick is always so important. We put so much importance on Gilius playing the Hecarim. Now you have first picks. I'm saying pick Jinx. Jinx can never go wrong as a B1. Jezu plays the Jinx on the bot side of the map. I think it's his most played champion as well, if I'm not wrong. And you just have perma push in the bot side of the map. Like if anything goes wrong, even if your early goes wrong.
Done. Yeah, well played. I mean, look, you are right. Jezu's played 6 games of Jinx. He's won 3 of them. His next most played is Ezreal and Aphelios at 2, and then 1-1-1s across the board. So Hecarim, Thresh, Zeri, Ryze, Jace, J4 removed from the pool. Every time I look at Zanzarah, I think about Trundle. It is also banned against Astralis very, very frequently. They're currently hovering the Leona, which is now locked in for promisq.
This could be an Aphelios Leona.
Yeah. Do you know which skill shot?
Oh, don't even.
A little bit of a callback to yesterday for any
you didn't catch my joke.
I missed it. Honestly, you delivered it so incredibly well. I missed it. And instead, it will be that Aphelios to match the Jinx. This is a theme of the last few weeks.
Now, if you want to counterpick, not to counterpick, but to pick support here, Treatz has played a lot of Alistar. It's all right into Leona. He's played a lot of Nautilus as well, which is great for setup. Seeing here Gilius onto the Volibear, I'm seeing a lot of early game action. It works really well if you have something like the Thresh or the Nautilus. Obviously, Thresh banned out, but they're going to take a page out of the Vitality notebook, which says, put Tahm Kench right next to your Jinx and she'll never die.
Well, it seems to be the page. I mean, Tahm Kench has been played by Treatz twice in his entire career, and he's won both of those games. So, going to be a low experience champion, exactly as we said. I mean, look, a lot of times Trundle is banned against
It's the Zanzarah
Zanzarah
special.
I do also quite like that into, slowing down, causing frustrations both offensively and defensively. But the solo lane is none picked yet, so these comps can still go wildly different.
So we're thinking here, what have these guys played a lot? LeBlanc for Sertuss, he's played the Orianna, which pairs up really well with the Rockets coming in from the Jinx,
Victor's
so that one's going to go out. Vex is something that Dajor has played a lot, but here, is it a huge disturbance for you? Because you've got the Tahm Kench to stop all that fear.
6 games played for Dajor on Vex. He's only won 2 of them. Yesterday, you and I talked so much about Victor. I need to see whether that'll come in. It's another powerful pick that is also Sertuss' second most played, Gwen, taken away from the champion pool.
I'm very surprised to see Gwen actually banned here. It's one of these champions that, unfortunately for her, she doesn't build Hullbreaker and can't slot into the jungle because both junglers have picked their own champions. So I'm thinking, is possibly Jenax thinking of not going maybe some sort of Hullbreaker champion? So what are you going to go for? Maybe the Aatrox again?
I sincerely hope not.
Gangplank is still open. Worked really well versus Aphelios yesterday.
We've seen Gnar picked a couple times as well, so that Victor was removed from the pool. A lot of those priority champions are taken away. And for Astralis, yesterday's game, it left a lot to be desired, I think. When we watched the approaches to fights, it was haphazard at best. They've got themselves at least one initiating tool in that Leona. And now we get the first glimpse into which direction this team composition will play out. Okay, control, pick. That'll be the first Twisted Fate for Dajor this year.
That's Sertuss pick Akali here, because with Akali, if you find where this Twisted Fate is TP into, you can follow up. But why do it the hard way when you can do it the easy way and just pretty much steal his ultimate and follow him around?
I mean, I really like the idea of Silas. Very briefly, Dajor's most played professional champion is Twisted Fate. 15 games with a 73% win ratio. And we were ideating what these solo lanes would look like. Gnar blind pick is something we've seen a couple times, so Jenax is going that way, which means another hull breaker.
Damage. I need damage coming in from SK Gaming. You have the Gnar, yes, you have the Volibear, yes, but you only have a Jinx that's doing consistent damage. You need another threat. You need another big threat. Sertuss has played the Akali. Sertuss has played the LeBlanc. They're both open up and available. Which one does he want to go towards?
Let's see right now. 0 wins on LeBlanc this year, if it is locked in. And I'm trying to scroll down my stat sheet. Not a particularly popular champion in Sertuss's history. Let's take a look. 22 games, 50%. So that will round it out. What does Dajor run into this now? Correction, WhiteKnights.
You've got a couple of options here. If you want to, you can choose to play the Aatrox. Yes, you suffer in the early, but then later on, they don't have a bunch of CC to stop you from reaching the backline. Graves is another pretty much easy champion, very hard to counter unless you pick that Tryndamere, and of course the Tryndamere is not an option here because the champion has been locked in. So I think Graves is going to have a pretty easy way around the top side of the map.
Okay, so let's zoom out and look at these two team compositions holistically. What do they want to do and how do they win?
So for SK Gaming, you definitely can play the 1-3-1 scenario. You've got a very strong core, 3 members with the Volibear and the Tahm with the Jinx, and then LeBlanc and Gnar can roam the side lane, especially since Gnar builds Hullbreaker. He's one of my favorite champions because he's also very slippery, can also push really fast. On the other side, you've also got a pretty strong 3-man core and a 1-3-1 composition if you so wish. The problem with Gnar is that if he gets shut down very early into the game, it's so difficult for you to take that top lane and get ahead because Graves also builds Hullbreaker. So if he's the first to it, he's just going to run you down.
Now, when we look at the composition from SK, I think they engage a little bit more reliant on flanking, a little bit more reliant on finding the right setups. Leona, yes, conditional, but you can press R, and if it doesn't hit, you don't jump in.
Okay, you confused me a little bit here. With Leona, yes. With Volibear, it's just more difficult, right? It's more conditional for SK Gaming. Like, Gilius is going to have to find the angles to get in there with the Volibear or even have to expend his flash. Whilst promisq, you can just press R button, catch someone off guard, or even take the summoners.
Right, okay. We'll break down the comps in just a moment. At the beginning of the game, Astralis reported communication issues, which we have since resolved. We are delaying the start of the game by 3 minutes to restore the delay difference between what they're playing and what we're broadcasting for competitive integrity. So with that, let's take a deeper look at the draft. That's not the draft, ladies and gentlemen. That was figurines. We definitely should have moved out of the way so focus would have been easier. So let's go back to the question.
I thought you were going to make a joke with the communication issues there.
Let's go back to the draft. Yeah, I think the question I'm going to ask is about initiation. I think of all the games that we've cast this weekend, teams that either control the map by playing on 3 as well, or teams that have good initiation have won the game. So initiation is the concern I have because I think they are dependent on either vision or flanking or skill shots, right?
I think it's much easier again from the sort of Astralis, right? We saw it with perks when you had the Twisted Fate. You press the R button, your opponents have to respect the gold card. And then on top of the gold card, you've got a Leona that can go in with 3 ways to lock you down. And even if you manage to escape, the pillar is going to appear on your face as well. So I feel like Astralis have a much easier way of locking down the targets. Whilst I feel like for SK Gaming, it's going to have to be Jenax on the Gnar, finding the flank, finding the backline. But we also saw Alphari use that very well to his advantage. I just feel like SK are going to have to be very, very careful to not get shut down on the side lane, because for this to work on the Gnar needs to be even or ahead.
Now, that is a good sign, though, because Jenax has been quietly confident, let's use that word, in the top lane. We were talking a lot about his laning stats and like his performance last year, his performance this year. Obviously, the team is struggling as a whole, but throughout the laning phase, Jenax is a bit of a secret weapon for SK.
I think he is very comparable to Alphari, especially if you look at last season. Jenax had one of the best top lane stats in the regular season for his laning phase. But when it came to translating that into the fights, translating that into the mid to late game, he just stumbled somewhere. Now, of course, you can't just blame that onto only one player. It's the entire team. But since we're going to hone down on how these players play. And since right now you're also playing on a side lane, which you should win, and then translate that into a lead, we're going to have to wait and see which one can do it better.
Well, we're going to find out. We are moments away from heading into game. And just a very quick reminder, Astralis, they are eliminated from playoff contention. SK Gaming face Astralis, Rogue, XL, and Misfits, and they only progress in 8% of the remaining 500,000 scenarios. SK Gaming need a win today to be one step closer to playoffs. To Summoner's Rift, second game of the second day of the 7th week of the spring season of LEC. Astralis already grouped up, looking for some shenanigans. That pillar of ice can be problematic, but I don't think anyone's going to step into the threat range.
I don't think it's about that. Maybe they're prepping for a very late invade onto the red side of the map so they can force Gilius away.
Well, that's why you're the brains and I'm the loud voice. Thank you, Trouble. They're not going to be able to commit to anything just yet. Instead, start to step backwards.
There's so many pings, I can't even see if they left a ward behind.
No,
I don't think so.
Doesn't look like it. No. Observers are going to highlight it. Thank you. Observer's really good at moving around.
Next time, try to leave a dent.
Yeah. or try to leave a ward. That also works.
How is it possible that 2 days in a row we have perfectly timed silences followed up by in-game voice lines? Now, unfortunately,
here it comes.
Unfortunately for Astralis, considering they're eliminated from playoffs, considering their struggles, I don't think next time leave a dent is problematic. You don't have any moving wheels anymore, my friends. Astralis are struggling. And Dajor, the man on your screen, I want to see what he can do with this Twisted Fate. I think you talked so much about 131s. We've seen the power of playing the side lanes, power of using that destiny. I think that's going to be one of the key tools, especially because we know how strong Jenax can be on the knob.
Also, I really love how you highlight Dajor here, because he was personally one of my favorite players to watch at EU Masters, having played only a quarter of a competitive season in the NLC, jumping into EU Masters, making finals, straight into the LEC. His trajectory to the LEC has been the fastest we've seen so far.
One could call it a speed run.
It was a speed run. Now, the LeBlanc Twisted Fate matchup is a tale as old as time. LeBlanc gets to bully the Twisted Fate in the early game. Twisted Fate gets to trade some of his HP because he has the better push. Now, because the wildcards were nerfed on their damage, he doesn't get to switch so hard towards the push from the Twisted Fate. This is why you see that the waves are not that easy to crash, right? But later on, Twisted Fate becomes a big problem for LeBlanc. The second you go in, you hit that yellow card with the rapid fire cannon, and then look at all these champions that you have. Yeah. The Leona CC going down, you have the Graves ultimate from super far away. You can blow Sertuss up really easily later on if he's not careful.
I also really like the combination of, like, you know, smoke screen or pillar of ice plus then CC, the gold card. There's so many things.
-1.
You can layer them very, very well. I missed it. I was taking a look at
It was
Treatz.
a -1. It was a -1.
Right. And of course, on the side of Treatz, he was looking for a little bit of a roam early up to the top lane. That little ward that promisq had placed in the red buff of Gilius is now timed out, and Zanzarah is just waiting there, overseeing what movement is happening. Both junglers equal on level for the time being, as Gilius is not going to make his way into the river, and Zanzarah backs out.
See, he backs out, but the problem is that Astralis' wave is pushing towards the side of SK. And SK, if they so wish, they can choose to keep the wave where they are right now, which means that Astralis are going to have to overextend, and they knew that Gilius was around. Now that they saw him, of course, back, they can actually proceed with shoving in that wave.
Yeah, it's Jezu going to use those rockets as best he can. The matchup we've seen so many times throughout the course of spring, and Now, of course, we'll just settle into the holding pattern. Both Zanzarah and Gilius backed away. Now, do you think you want to see Zanzarah combat with a specific lane first on this Trundle, or is he just going to be content farming?
Very importantly, I love how you mentioned Zanzarah, because if you look here, WhiteKnight shoved in his wave and he placed a very key ward inside Gilius' jungle so they can spot the bear. The bear has not been spotted.
No, he hasn't. The sky's been split and the smashes were thundering, but Dajor flashes for his life. Gilius trading that for Dajor, I think, is probably something he'll be content with, especially as they get closer to 6 and that kill threat goes up.
That kill threat goes up for LeBlanc as well, because level 6 Sertuss, you can chunk out Dajor from lane, and since you don't have flash, you need to be extra careful for the next trade. Yeah. And this is why LeBlanc is just so dangerous into Twisted Fate at the earliest stages of the game. But look at the ward that WhiteKnight placed.
Zenith Blade, don't miss this Q. Not going to happen just yet. Waiting for the E, and that's it. Never miss the Q, and here comes Zanzarah with the Pillar of Ice. That's the layering of CC. And remember, WhiteKnight set this play up 2 minutes ago, 2.5 minutes ago. Trouble, you spotted that ward, and Astralis played it perfectly.
This is the power of Graves. With Graves, you can choose to crush your second or your third wave underneath your opponent's tower, because it's just so easy to shove in with Graves Q, and of course his auto attacks. What do? In your free time? You go down the river, or you go into your opponent's jungle that you know is cleared up, and you place a ward for next time the minions spawn. So that was a really great read right there from Astralis. They knew that Gilius had started from the top side of his map, and they go instantly and punish him when the Grom comes up.
Astralis with a very early advantage. Comes straight from that lane, and that is also one of those very important champions that can hold down Gnar. Graves later in the game. Sertuss manages to mimic the chain. Here comes Treatz, doesn't find the knock-up. The Ignite, I don't think will burn Dajor down. Not enough damage to close it out.
We have been very critical with the decision-making when it comes to Astralis in the mid to later stages of the game. We sort of compare that to playing a chess game and knowing your first move, but you haven't accounted for the moves to come after.
What I like is because it takes like 20, 30 moves to sort of win a chess game, right?
Exactly.
You have to have a whole game plan.
So every time there is a plan for either a kill or an objective for the sort of Astralis, they always know what the first step is. They are so good at using priorities, using vision right there. They used WhiteKnight's priority, they used the vision that he set up down, and they ended up taking the kill. Now, when it comes to mid to late game, it feels like their decision-making is a little bit shaky. Because yes, they know what step 1 is, but they choose to skip a bunch of the steps in between, and they never reach the destination.
I'm going to be a little bit more critical, I think. Not only is it a little bit shaky in the decision-making, but even then in the execution of the decision they do make, not always on the same page, not always coordinating particularly well. Now, this first blood that Astralis picked up is a demonstration of how they made a plan and it worked. Now we need to see what do they do next, right? Because there's no dragon to secure. SK picked that one up. There's no towers to push or lanes. Blue buffers respawn. So, yes, great. They've got that kill. They've got an 800 lead. But now Dajor's level 6. WhiteKnight's got a kill already. Leona making their way up. You know, Kobbe's just got access to the Moonlight Vigil. I really want to see how Dajor can play these side lanes to help out the rest of Astralis.
The problem out here is, how do you de-push the LeBlanc?
Yeah.
Sertuss is half a level above you at this point, and right now only he managed to get the push in the mid lane, and you see that all he has to do is slightly move out of vision, but he's not, because that is a really beautifully placed ward right behind him that spots him every time. Oh, right there. Every time he wants to move out of lane, you want to be sneaky and hide just behind that pillar, but you're not moving. But this ward spots you out, and it means that if the Twisted Fate's not moving on the map, you don't have to respect the ult.
So we've actually had a couple of really good wards. You know, promisq with the minute and a half onto the red buff. They gave info on Gilius, followed by WhiteKnight warding up on the top. And I mean, Astralis will be pretty comfortable, I think. You know, we're 8 minutes in. They do have a minor gold lead. Picked up, you know, by Graves in that top lane. It was a Hullbreaker already, by the way. So you're going to be very, very happy. Yes, with that at 8 minutes in game. Jenax is going to be a little frustrated. But to SK's credit, they did pick up that first dragon. And, you know, they haven't really made any huge moves themselves. Gilius got that flash early from Dajor. But other than that, it's just been farming up. He's got access to level 6. And we just sat in this holding pattern. So I think that the onus to make those moves falls a little bit on Astralis when you see the comp they have.
Yeah, but also WhiteKnight can be such a nuisance in the side lane because no one can move him right now. He has a dash, an ult, a flash to get away from anything you throw his way. He has the extra defenses coming in from the Hullbreaker as well. And because Jenax has not managed to match it so far with another Hullbreaker yet, that means that WhiteKnight is immovable from his lane. And I think this is one of the reasons why Dajor hasn't necessarily wanted to pull the trigger yet. Now they can use the power of WhiteKnight with his item to fight that Herald.
Well, Herald is about to be killed. 1900 hit points. Dajor's going to make his way up as well. Jenax, no not bar to speak of. Gold card shut down. Final hit is secured by WhiteKnight. In fact, the eye is left standing and Sjokz can't pick it up. They get the kill, they don't get the eye.
I'm scratching my head because that was a 4 HP Herald, and I think Gilius did have his smite up and available. I'm not sure if he couldn't reach at that point, but at the end of the day, just flash and smite it, because I think it is very important. You use the pressure, you give up pressure down the bot lane for that Rift Herald. You need to make sure you secure it.
Let's now take a look, because while that was happening, Kobbe, as you mentioned, puts 4 plates down in that bottom lane. That is terrifying, and we can watch closely for the smite.
Yeah, so look at the map right here. You see that SK is putting everyone towards the top lane basket to try and fight for this Herald, whilst on the other side, Astralis do not really care, and they're just trying to push both sides. It was 4 HP.
That was...
It was 4 HP, and Gilius had smite.
If we had a camera for the observers, that is where I'd like you to pull it up so I can give them a round of applause. That might be one of the coolest freeze frames I've ever seen.
I don't know if it was that cool for Gilius, Trevor.
I just celebrate good moments, right? I'm the bias for our side. But I was saying, by the way, while the play was going on, Kobbe was pushing the bottom lane.
Kobbe was getting rich.
He's got tons of plates secured, a lot of gold to his name. And correct me if I'm wrong, yesterday I think it would be fair to say SK didn't cross-map particularly well against Vitality. So I want to see what happens today, because we've talked so much about 1-3-1s. And the pace of this game is a lot slower than we've had. That means side lane pressure, playing around objectives is going to be crucial. So that's what you and I have to keep our eyes on and evaluate.
Yeah, and again, WhiteKnight comes into this picture because he played a pretty good Gnar with Hullbreaker the other day, and he did really well. Now it's up to Astralis, saying the other day, yesterday, and he did really well. Now it's up to Astralis to actually use that advantage that they have onto the Graves. He's got a bunch more components on him as well. The Vamp Scepter for a little bit more HP, and going towards the Shield Bow and Bloodthirster build. He's going to be so tanky and so durable on the lane. You're not just going to need Gilius to take him down, you're going to also need Sertuss. And when you commit 3 members towards the top side of the map, what's happening on the rest?
I mean, just look at these itemizations, right? Hullbreaker plus a couple of thrift stores for WhiteKnight. You've got Gale Force already for Kobbe. It's nearly 2,000 gold lead in favor of Astralis. They're already in the river now. They don't have the deepest vision, and there's no destiny for Dajor.
Although there is going to be teleport for Jenax and no teleport for WhiteKnight, but the second you step out of your lane, you go back and you're like, where's my tower? Especially if the Hullbreaker has been completed. So I think it's the right move right here from SK. Gilius is also top side of the map. Just concede this dragon. It's only going to be the first one for Astralis, and try to farm up. You need your Jinx to at least have her mythic, possibly have a second item as well. And Gilius just picked up his chem tank.
Yeah, I mean, Astralis are looking very comfortable. Looking to be the heartbreakers, you know, looking to cause problems for any other playoff contenders. SK holding on by a thread. But just in that moment, as they've backed, not only the chem tank, Luden's Echo picked up there for Sertuss, and this tower should just about fall.
It's not that easy because it's pre-14.
Well, there's 3 members, and they're going to hold it off. Not a full commit. The Rockets and Kobbe using the range instead of the minigun.
Luckily for SK Gaming, the tower is more durable pre-14, so it's not that easy for an Aphelios only hitting it to take it down. But sooner or later, it is going to go down, and that is 4 platings that already Kobbe has had on his side, and Jezu is playing catch-up at this point.
I do think for Kobbe, as long as he doesn't get burst down by LeBlanc, the type of champion, you know, with the Gale Force, enough time, can start to hammer away on the opponents, as this tower is so low. Zanzarah still sticking around. Let's talk a little bit about Gilius. You know, he's just been farming up. Where do you see, how do you want to see him really get involved over the next few minutes of gameplay? Because it's kind of been the Astralis show so far.
So, Volibear is one of these champions that, especially after level 6, is just so easy for you to tower dive. But the problem here is, bot lane has been shoved, top lane is going to be infinitely shoved because the Graves is ahead. And of course, the Twisted Fate is your only target. Now, possibly you could catch Kobbe too?
She just literally sidestepped the traps. Gale force away, flash to follow. Nobody's close enough in range. Gilius doesn't have the damage just yet. Dropping the thunder down. Kobbe heals and runs for his life. SK tried and failed to kill the bot lane.
What did we say in Champ Select? It is so conditional. You have to catch someone off position if you're SK, because your only engage right here is the Volibear running straight at you, especially when Jenax's Gnar is stuck on a side lane and he can't use his Mega Gnar. Now, I really love the fact that we're showcasing the pressure that the Graves with Hullbreaker can exert on any champion, but this is really difficult times for SK Gaming, because yes, the composition can peel backwards, which is what you wanted for, right? You wanted for the 1-3-1, but your LeBlanc is not particularly ahead of the Twisted Fate. Your Gnar is falling behind to the Graves, so that 1-3-1 goes in favor of Astralis for now.
You could hear in my voice as Kobbe was running for his life, there was just this gut instinct that he was not going to die. And, you know, the split up members of SK Gaming, it feels as though Astralis are slowly suffocating SK out of this game. That gold lead continues to steadily grow. WhiteKnight already has an advantage over Jenax's Gnar. We saw him bullying them. Now, Kobbe doesn't have his summoner, so yes, he is an available target for the next few minutes, but so is Dajor at level 3 or 4. Nothing was capitalized after that. Astralis get the first tower. They got the first kill. They got a dragon to their name. And it's all Astralis for the first 15 minutes.
I just feel like for a champion like Volibear, you need to be a little bit more proactive on the map. Now, of course, it's a pretty good move for SK, because as you see, there's 3 members down the bot lane for Astralis, and Gilius is going to start that Rift Herald, but I think this is pretty worth it for Astralis, giving more money towards Kobbe.
I think that Shield of Daybreak would have counted as a miss, because promisq was trying to get up there, and unfortunately didn't land it.
I'm going to explain this, okay? It's promisq actually missing his ability, not another ability causing it to miss, okay? That was the joke. That was the joke.
I really am killing it. I really am killing it.
Miss his Q.
Jenax is just being bullied.
He can miss his
for the
E-Boy.
time being. Yes, he can. Jenax, I think, hopped away from that one. We'll give him the credit.
He flashed away from that one, and it's very important.
I think, yeah, exactly. He escapes with his life, but all of the pressure onto Jenax opens up the possibility for SK to pick up their first kill in the top lane. WhiteKnight still has flash available. He's dashed there, finally uses the flash, and here comes the rest of the squad. 3 members used to take him down. A lot thrown in, but they might be able to pick up the tower.
Took a teleport and 4 members of SK going top side of the map to kill WhiteKnight before he even had purchased his shield bow. Whilst Dajor is getting free time in the mid lane to farm and push a tower. There's another wave shoved in the bot lane as well. I think Astralis will be more than fine with this one.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, 3 towers to 0. The top lane didn't even fall. Jenax doesn't have flash. Shield of Daybreak connected. Solar Flare is available and hopped away from once again.
More.
Just throw more. Come on, lads. Hit him with a gold card. Moonlight Vigil. Zenith Blade this time around. And finally, Jenax will go
Hullbreaker is fun, though.
It is so fun to watch.
It's really fun to watch. Because that was a mina.
Okay, I like this though. We said 5 minutes ago we wanted to see some other lane plays. With the investment top, the Rift Herald was dropped in the middle lane and then peeling back for Dragons. So SK, I like this. They are still significantly behind Astralis though, so they do need more of these plays. They don't get the tower, they don't get the dragon either.
You're going to have to choose because Astralis here can get the tower themselves. I would have liked Zanzarah to actually have left WhiteKnight on his own in the mid lane, where he would have done more damage due to the Hullbreaker on the mid lane tower, because then you can actually trade the mid with the dragon. But of course, Treatz being there makes it a no-go, and SK are going to actually have a semi-positive trade for themselves, securing the second dragon. On the other side of the map, Kobbe is taking more and more and more towers. You could say he has a Hullbreaker of his own.
He does. Now Dajor's in trouble as well, so this chess game of moving pieces around the map, SK go top, so Astralis go top, sorry, so SK go mid and then fall down to Dragon, which allows Astralis to continue to pushing top. 4 towers secured. Astralis are really turning the heat up, and SK are starting to fall to a point that you get worried for how these fights will start when it's been Dajor being able to respond. The initiation from promisq, while not always the most effective, has secured them enough of a lead.
Yeah, you say four towers secured. This has been the Aphelios running away from danger while taking towers the entire time. They've been moving Aphelios away from where Gilius is, away from where Sertuss is. They put him in a very safe lane, and because SK pay attention to the other side of the map, he's just banking in some free gold at this point. Now they're just putting him in the mid lane, because look at this tower. It is very, very, very low. They put around him 3 members of Astralis as well, so this is going to be the 5th tower that Kobbe and Astralis have taken down.
Now, this is the Astralis I wanted to see yesterday. Sadly, I didn't, because in the last few weeks, Astralis have definitely looked a lot more cohesive, a lot more capable in playing. But if I'm going to be honest, and you look at the 20 minutes of gameplay here and you contrast that to what we just saw from Misfits and Vitality, you can see the difference in how the teams play the map, how they push their advantages, and why, you know, SK and Astralis are sitting in the bottom 4 slots while Misfits and Vitality in the top 4. And for SK, that is terrifying, because the last place team in the league is, you know, 6k gold up right now. Got 5 towers already. SK have not secured a single tower. And that makes it so hard when you look at this composition, how they want to play.
Let me remind you, this is SK's safe spot.
Oh, is that right? Let's see what they can do to turn it around, because Jenax will once again be the target. He's going to use that Gnar back, and not even going to land the wallop. 3 members of Astralis jump onto him. And I do feel for Jenax this game. He's been focused as the, you know, lane assignments are played out.
You have to shut down the Gnar early, or he's going to take the game away with him. We mentioned it literally from the draft, and that's what Astralis have done. I think WhiteKnight took the first kill, and he completely snowballed it out of control. Honestly, props to him, because every single time I feel like WhiteKnight has tremendously performed on a side lane all on his own, and here Treatz oversteps his welcome. They take his flash away as well. Astralis are everywhere, and they're playing towards the side that is strong for them. Look at that. WhiteKnight, he's taking bot lane tower.
I mean, this is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. WhiteKnight's going to take the bottom lane tower, turn his attention to the inhibitor. While that's going on, promisq will just about go down as SK Gaming chuck everything they had. SK say, screw the base, Jenax has got it. They're going to push down mid lane, and they're going to look for another tower.
But that is an inhibitor tower that this Graves took all on his own. More money. Now, of course, because you lose the Leona, you lose that Guardian that's right next to the Aphelios, and Kobbe has to respect that. You said that he didn't push in the mid lane at all. He just went straight into Fog of War so he doesn't get picked off by Sertuss. Yes, it is a good pick by SK. Does it solve any problems in the future? No, it does not, because it will only get more and more difficult to play this game with Twisted Fate finding Sertuss in the fights, with SK not necessarily having any easy way to re-engage onto these fights. And here, I'm just gonna show this thing happening on the bot side of the map, because never mind, I'm not gonna show you. Graves, that was a very weird zoom. It's Graves pushing inhibitor tower all on his own, while SK are picking onto a support and having to commit another TP for that as well.
I also wonder, you know, would WhiteKnight have stuck around on the inhibitor? You know, we talked so much about that G2 Misfits game yesterday. 17-minute inhibs allowed Misfits back in the game by farming. Now, it's only 20 minutes into the game. I think Astralis could have then made a play for Baron. It would have been a bit smarter this time round. But it's one of those discussions that you rarely get to truly evaluate the cost of the decisions.
I think the best thing you can do right now, if you're Astralis, is keep that threat open. Keep pushing SK, thinking that they have to reply to that one. Or if they don't, you could take their inhibitor.
Well, right now, Zanzarah is trying to put the hurt onto Gilius. Forced to run away with his ultimate. Sertuss now making his way. No flash, no mimic either. And, you know, in contrast to yesterday's game where SK, they had initiation tools, but not enough dive buddies. Today, you can feel a little bit of the inability to initiate. Plus, Astralis have just moved around the map more effectively. Maybe Kobbe has. Maybe it's just him. But no, it's a team game. And as Astralis have moved those tower-killing threats around, they've built up this big lead. And now SK in their own jungle are being forced away. The Ocean Drake has spawned up. The Flame Chompers are down. This could be a huge fight. That's gigantic! Jenax gets the Gnar, but there's not enough damage. There's not enough follow-up. Nobody's died just yet. WhiteKnight flashes and stays alive. The Moonlight Vigil finally fired up by Kobbe. Nobody's dead! Nobody's dead!
I think
everybody gets out.
SK have suffered more from this trade than Astralis have. Because for Astralis, you've got so much life still onto that Graves. They've taken the plant as well. They can stick around. WhiteKnight's going to go back. He's going to TP back in Sertuss.
22 minutes of gameplay. Trouble, I think you've summarized it entirely. SK have lost more in this trade because there have been skirmishes, there have been kills, but it has been SK losing more. Now, there was a little bit of a reset and a TP back in. Dragon is up, Zanzarah chucks out the Ice Pillar. No follow-up yet, looking for the smite and the chomp and the bite, and inside the pit, Astralis easily picked that one up. WhiteKnight has been able to replenish himself, level 15. Stepping forward, no collateral damage. Jenax has got a Gnar once more. Boulder smash and the Pillar of Ice. You can't get through that. Look at the zone control. SK cannot get to Astralis.
There is just no easy way for Astralis to be able to get in and get kills.
Well, now all of a sudden SK are split up. They just keep moving. 3 members into the 5 of Astralis. What the hell was that?
It's a little bit over eager for SK to try and get some of the shutdowns, right? Try to find some of these targets, but it's difficult. I want you to look right now in the inventories. Yes, LeBlanc is an assassin. Who are you going to assassinate? Oh no. Oh no.
The disco picture-in-picture?
Right.
Yo,
Back to the
production.
LeBlanc.
That was awesome.
The one who has the only easy way in is LeBlanc because he has 2 dashes. Who are you gonna kill? There's a shield bow onto the Graves. There's a bunch of HP and tankiness from his ultimate onto the Trundle. You want Twisted Fate? He's got a bunch of HP as well due to the Everfrost, and he's building Hourglass. Your only target is Kobbe onto that Aphelios, and he's playing so carefully this entire game to not get picked off by Sertuss. But even if Kobbe does get picked off, I think WhiteKnight does so much damage in the fights right now that he could potentially cover up for the Aphelios not being there.
Can you remind me of Draft was great? The last pick? I think it was, if I recall correctly, or maybe it was like first pick, second rotation, but this WhiteKnight Graves,
It was last
4-1. It has been a little bit of the defining pick because he was able to handle Jenax in the 1v1 and the rest of Astralis. Look at them.
It's chaos.
Forcing SK to split up, to scatter, to go running back to the fountain. They've lost 7 lives. They've lost 6 towers. It's been a slow but steady grind here for Astralis, looking to be home wreckers, looking to destroy the hopes and the chances for SK. At least make it significantly harder for SK to make playoffs.
Honestly, Trevor, you wanted clean from Astralis. I think this has been pretty clean. They have been using WhiteKnight on a side lane. He has been creating a lot of pressure due to the item and due to the fact that he won his matchup early on. And we mentioned you shut down Gnar, it gets much more difficult to play the game later on as Gnar. And they have been using this. Again, they put Graves. Look on the map right now. They put Graves in the mid lane all alone. What does that mean? That means Hullbreaker activated, while the rest of Astralis are pushing the map from the top side.
But Astralis have done that the entire game, right? Like, they really, really have had lane assignments, I feel, quite well. I don't think we've seen a huge 1-3-1. It's felt like a little bit more 4-1 most of the time. But it's working really, really well. After Kobbe killed a bunch of the towers, now SK, they fancy revenge. 5-on-1. Can you take down WhiteKnight? They're not going to initiate just yet, obviously, because they'd lose top inhibitor. Super minions are now inside the base. So Astralis can now start to pull the attention. SK goes for the initiation. Zanzarah flashes for his life. The subjugate stays alive long enough. Jenax gets the knock, but where's the follow-up? Nothing's there. Sertuss flashes forward and cannot find the troll. Zanzarah held onto that flash for so incredibly long. And look at the damage dealers. They take forever to finally kill the front line. Astralis have destroyed the base. The Winions are on the Nexus. And a 5-man stack of Astralis will take down SK Gaming and potentially take SK out of playoffs with them. One last stand as Gilius flashes forward, but there's not enough damage, there's not enough follow-up. The rest of Astralis turn to pad the stacks, find the kills. Jezu fires out the zap, but uses the cleanse to run for his life, but Astralis will defeat SK Gaming. What a fantastic match. Look at Zanzarah! Oh my word! Do a little dance.
He knows how to
love.
He knows how to move better than me.
Get down tonight. Zanzarah's over the moon with that win.
Okay, how old was that song, Quickshot?
Oh, it's almost as old as time. What I'd love to know is Zanzarah happy because he won a Trundle, or because I'm a little bit
like a troll dance.
I'm a little bit dark in my soul. Was he happy because he may have taken SK down with them? Of course, of the 500,000 scenarios that were remaining, we're now down to 260,000 scenarios, and only 4% of those scenarios will have SK advancing to playoffs. Do you want to know who they face to potentially get there? Rogue, XL, and Misfits. Tough task. Now, before we get to that, your nominees for Key Up Player of the Game: WhiteKnight, Zanzarah, and promisq. Head over to Twitter at LEC and vote for your poggers.
Didn't miss HQ this time.
Nope.
No, it was pretty stellar. Honestly,
I'm pretty sure I killed that joke.
I feel like you did.
Yeah, thank you. And I apologize.
Back to back, WhiteKnight has been stellar.
Yes.
He knows exactly what he needs to do on the champion that he's been picked, how to exert his pressure, where to team up with his team.
Yeah.
And I think Astralis today, specifically against SK, they showcased how they can use that pressure.
They did. And I think over the games that we've cast this weekend, we're starting to see a big difference between the top of the table and the bottom of the table. Astralis took down SK, but SK are still in contention after the break. We'll hear from the victorious WhiteKnight with Laure. Find out about that Zanzarah dance, maybe.